Hi, everyone. I am so excited that I get to host today's event. I have the privilege of introducing Michelle Pausine, who is the chef and owner of the 20th Century Cafe and one of San Francisco's best pastry chefs. She's been cooking in North Carolina since 1992 and got her big break in 1995 at Chapel Hill's Pyewacket restaurant. Pausine made that restaurant's famous dinner rolls, and a pastry career was born. She has since worked at some of San Francisco's best restaurants. She has been covered in Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, and the New York Times, among other publications, and has been nominated as an outstanding pastry chef by the James Beard Foundation. She lives in San Francisco with her husband and her cats, and I am so excited to watch her presentation today. Hi, Michelle.
I'm like, is that me? Dun, 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 dun. Hi, this is the 20th Century Cafe where I am inside now. And the book is Baking at the 20th Century Cafe, where we are baking. So I'm going to demonstrate the strawberry tart. Oh, where'd you go? Hopefully I'm still here. I just took the phone off the hook. These are some strawberries. And here I'm going to start making the dough. So just to tell a little bit about the cafe, we're in San Francisco. I visited the grand cafes in Budapest, Vienna, and Prague, and that inspired me to make this place. This tart is inspired by the strawberries at the farmer's market. They're very nice. These came from Dirty Girl Produce. And okay, here we go. So I got some flour and I don't know, can you see me? I've got salt and sugar. I'm gonna pop those in there, kind of stir it around. And then I've got my trusty little scale here. I'm gonna weigh out my ice water, my little pitcher. Okay, I got that. Turn off your scale so you don't waste your batteries. Maybe. Okay, leave your scale on because it doesn't want to turn off. Okay, so now the butter you want to cut into little cubes, like I have here. See my cubes of butter. You want to get them as evenly sized as you can. I usually just take the stick of butter and lay it on its side and cut it one direction, then flip it and cut the other, and then go like this to get these little cubes. And then when they're kind of plasticky feeling, like you squeeze them and it doesn't crack, and you throw them in the flour. This is a recipe that I learned when I was at Chez Panisse, and Jacques Pepin taught the kids there many years ago. And this is the dough that we use for all the tarts there, and it's one of the doughs I like to use for my tarts here. So you put it in there, toss it just to coat them, and then you kind of like go around and like kind of shake it around, and you're gonna kind of try to knock the corners off. And this just helps get the butter the right consistency, and it also kind of coats the flour with a little bit of butter to help give you a slightly shorter crust, which just means you're like coating it so it is more like kind of crispy and tender. And then, so this is actually, you are using room temperature butter, contrary to all the things that all of us ever learned in our lives about making pie dough. You actually are using kind of not soft butter, but room temperature butter. So then I get all my corners knocked off, and then I kind of scoosh the butter to one side. I don't know if you can see that. Then I go through and I make these like little kind of butter, like almost like little tongues with the butter. And here we go. Squishing. Okay, I'm gonna use both hands. Da-da-da. So the strawberry tart that I had decided to make today, I actually have been dividing the dough into two for our modern COVID times, and it works really well. So instead of making one big tart, you make two small tarts, and you can kind of do it a couple ways. Like you can make one of the tarts and put the other dough in your freezer, or you can make both tarts side by side and give one to a neighbor. because like, you know, we're not having big gatherings and stuff where you would have a giant tart. Or you can kind of make both tarts, put one in the fridge, bake one off today, and then bake another one off tomorrow. So that, because I just think it's better to, instead of having a leftover tart, it's better to have a fresh tart 2 days in a row. That is my choice. Okay, so I've got my butter squish. Everybody's in there. And then what I want to do is I kind of turn my hand into like a little fountain. And then I pour the water down. And it kind of like helps distribute the ice water. And then I start kind of raking it through. I get a little more. Use everything. And then I just get in there, start raking around, squishing my butter. Hey. So you want everything to come together. So I kind of use my hand like a claw. And this is also kind of contrary. I chose this dough because it's just very weird. Like the technique is very weird, but it yields an awesome crust. So you're doing all the things that you've always been told that you're never supposed to do. Like I'm using soft butter, I'm working the dough. It's terrible. I'm a bad person right now, but it's gonna make this awesome dough that's super crispy. And okay. I might need just a tiny bit more water. The ice cube out of there. Okay, so everything's getting, you can see I have like a couple little dry spots on the bottom, but all that's gonna be gathered up together. And I spilled some, so I'm just gonna pick it up. So since I'm making 2 doughs with this, I'm just gonna divide it. And I have one of my old assistants, he told me that he actually uses this as his normal pie dough now. So he just doesn't even make any other dough. So you can use this for pie dough, according to Adam Mark. And so I'm going to take my 2 doughs, and then this is kind of a little, the finishing part of this dough is actually, you put it in a sheet of plastic wrap, and get the schmutz off my fingers. And then you're going to take it, I don't know, can you see this? Yes. So I take it and I kind of turning it, and squishing it, and rotating it. And this is kind of doing the final incorporation of the butter. And it makes the dough, I don't know if you guys have ever made like galettes, where you make this beautiful dough and then there's like a hunk of butter and it leaks out in the baking, and then all the fruit juices and everything fall out of the hole. So this way, everything kind of stays in there and you get this really nice marbly texture, which makes a very magically flaky dough. Okay, so let's see if I've got it. I use kind of the plastic wrap like a window to look at the back. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but it's kind of like streaky. See? Look at the marbly texture. Okay, so I did that one. Let me do the other one real quickly. Okay, all right. Everybody's ready. And hey now. For my next trick, I will show you how I like to prepare the strawberries. So I just take these guys, and it's easiest if you actually take the stem off first. like this. And then I have like one of these like kind of crappy little $1.99 knives that you thought, why do I have this thing? It's useless, but it's actually really perfect for holding a strawberry. So I take it, it's very thin, and I put it down right there, right where the core is, and I kind of use it like an axis and turn around, and then you core it, but you don't kind of mess up, like you don't decapitate the strawberry, because what did it ever do to you? I don't really want to take its head off. Perfectly nice fruit. And then I usually just switch to another knife to cut it in half. And then I kind of end up with these like, they end up looking more like hearts. Instead of like things with their heads cut off. So I have my little heart-shaped strawberries, and I like to use tiny ones for this. So I kind of like pick and choose through my flat, and I eat all the big ones, and then I save the little ones for the tart. And I have a dough here, which I have already rolled to show you. And I put, this has the almond cream on it. The dough is rolled and the little crumbs are on. So this is how you do the edge. It'd be better if I do this. So here's the dough, it's on the parchment paper. I rolled it onto, and then I'm just gonna take it, kind of do a little, can you see this? Little loopy thing. I'm making this rope edge. So I'm just twisting it around itself. And there are a couple other books or other, tarts in this book that use the same technique. Two of them are actually savory tarts. One of them, instead of almond cream on the bottom, it has cherry. That's a sweet tart. That's with cherry and rhubarb. And you can really use anything. You just want to put something on the bottom. Like sometimes I've even been desperate and I just put like a thick layer of butter and then mashed a bunch of crumbs in the bottom. Because you need to do something to soak up the strawberry juice, because it's not like a pie where you would be mixing it with like tapioca or cornstarch or flour to keep it from the juices to tighten them up. It's actually all the juices are kind of going that direction. They're all going down. And so you have to have an absorbing layer to keep them from making you have a soggy crust. Wait, so there's that. And then I started one already because I thought it might not be that exciting for you to watch me put 10 million strawberries on a tart. So this one I started already here, and I'm just going to put my little berries over my time. Okay. So, and so I'm really kind of squeezing them together as tightly as I can. The berries are going to shrink a lot because it's all the water is basically going to cook out of them. The thing I like about, I'm not like a big fan of strawberry rhubarb pie, but this tart I like because the strawberries, they don't get squishy like they do. And strawberry, they like all the water bakes out, so they turn into like the super delicious, like chewy, jammy strawberry kind of awesome thing. Around. This is very weird. There's this live, not live thing happening. Like, I don't even actually know if you're out there. Like, I could just be talking to the air right now, and the Zoom thing cut off, and everyone's yelling, Michelle, Michelle, we can't hear you. Speak up. But so anyway, I'm taking it on faith that you all are here and watching me do this tart. And okay. Ah.
Michelle, it's Heather. I just want to let you know we can see and hear you, and it's fantastic.
Yay! Okay, good. Thanks. It's kind of lonesome over here. I can hear the glasses rattling and the guy downstairs fixing the freezer. But oh my goodness, look at all these strawberries. Okay. All right. Ta-da! So that is my top one. Okay, am I allowed to run out of frame to go grab my butter? Okay, I'm doing it. I melted butter. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of double check my arrangement and make sure everything's good before I give it the final. Kind of once you put it in the oven, it's all over for you. You kind of have to be happy with it the way it is. I've given an amount for the sugar for the strawberries, but you know, if your strawberries are super sweet or if they're super tart, you want to adjust it. I mean, it is really like, it's a fruit dessert and fruit is so variable. So you want to make sure that it's going to be, I mean, if also if you have like a giant sweet tooth, you might want to use more sugar than I do. So I always taste my fruit also because I always am tasting fruit because fruit's so good. And then I'm like, okay, do I want to add more sugar? So this is going to be, the amount of sugar that I give you in the recipe is going to give you like a nice balanced tart. But if you if your strawberries are like sour, you want to add a little hair more. So I just brush the butter on the edge and then dribble a little on the top. And put my sugar. Hey, put that there. I'm pretending I use a spoon, but I usually don't. Okay, so I'm just gonna go all over. You want to get it on the edge of the crust and all over the berries evenly. You want to season high enough with your sugar so that like you get it evenly on there, but you know, not so high that it goes all over your counter instead of on your tart. Okay. And then put it in the oven. Which I'm going over here. Oh, I could do this. Look, it's like a moving camera. Whoa. I'm going into the oven now. Okay. And then I'm back. Okay. And then where am I? Am I all even here? This is what it looks like when it's finished. Okay. Ta-da! Was that too fast? Do I need to talk?
That was great. It looks so good.
Oh, good.
Wait, so how long do you think prep time is for that? Just so people know.
Well, the smaller tart is obviously like twice as fast because the thing that takes so long is like pulling all the berries all perfectly and arranging them on the tart. So if you're doing one tart at a time, it's probably going to be, I would say, I would want to give yourself, for a small tart, I'd want to give yourself 20 minutes. And for the large tart, I would want to give yourself, until you've done a couple and you know how you're like fast or not, you would want to give yourself 30 minutes. So you have plenty of time. And I always chill my dough really well. And in fact, if you can fit your little tart shell that you formed that I showed you, if you can fit it in your freezer, put it in there while you're prepping your strawberries so that it's super, super firm. And then you have like lots of time. You don't have to worry, like if it's summertime, which is, you know, usually when you're making a strawberry tart, your kitchen gets really hot. It's nice to have that kind of like extra time to have your dough as chilled as possible. Otherwise, you just like have to be like a machine and go really, really fast.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that beautiful presentation. I want to give everybody time. If you have any questions for Michelle, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end of the Zoom. So start thinking about your questions for her. And Jackie, if you are ready, I would love to get your presentation started. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Well, I'm also very excited to be introducing you today for your book, Taste of Tucson. Just to give a background for everybody, Jackie Alpers is a cookbook author, recipe developer, and award-winning food photographer. She contributes to many online and print media outlets. Jackie happily cooks from her kitchen in Tucson, Arizona. So if you would love to get us started, I'm very excited.
Wonderful. Well, I've prepared a little PowerPoint presentation for you all. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm gonna hope that you all are seeing that all right. Christina, can you see it all right?
Perfect, I can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, hi, like I said, my name is Jackie Alpers, and I'm the author of Taste of Tucson, which is Sonoran-style recipes inspired by the rich culture of Southern Arizona. Sorry about that. This is an introduction to and short history of a unique regional cuisine. Tucson is a hot, dusty college town situated between Santa Fe and Southern California. It boasts, both in physicality and style, a truly unique cuisine. Tucson's unparalleled cuisine is heavily influenced by the city's location in the Sonoran Desert and its proximity to Mexico. Though the borders have been redrawn over the years, Sonora, Mexico, which Tucson was part of until only very recently, remains only 60 miles away. Tucson was first in the US to be designated a city of gastronomy by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, an agency promoting diversity around the world. Over the years, Native American and Hispanic cultures have mixed with generations of settlers who moved to the Southwest looking for a new life. Like many American cities, Tucson is a patchwork of cultures that began long before the Europeans got here. What's different is the unique and evolving makeup of that patchwork and how it has grown into a vibrant and thriving community. Tucson is one of the oldest continually inhabited regions in the world. The Paleo Indians lived here at least 12,000 years ago. They were hunter-gatherers who lived on the edible flora and fauna. When it was time to hunt, they relied more on small game like rabbit and quail than large game like that also roamed in the region, such as this giant prehistoric ground sloth. Some of these native plants, and to a lesser extent animals, are still part of the local cuisine today, but not the ground sloth, they're extinct. Beginning about 4,000 years ago, the Hohokam Indians learned how to grow crops using ditches that collected rainwater and irrigation canals that diverted water from natural waterways. Corn, beans, and squash are three of the earliest domesticated crops grown in the Sonoran region. Nicknamed the Three Sisters, they thrive when planted close together, and when eaten together, they are nutritionally complete. As time passed, the regional cuisine evolved. Several key turning points had a major impact on Tucson's culinary evolution, including land wars, Manifest Destiny, and the Gadsden Purchase. The region was first ruled by native cultures, then Mexico, then Spain, and then Mexico again. In 1880, the railroad brought an influx of new settlers and new and prepackaged foods. In 1910, the Mexican Revolution sent thousands of people from Mexico into southern Arizona, and in 1912, it became one of the last territories to join the United States. So Arizona has only been a state since 1912, and actually the lower region, which is where Tucson is part of, was one of the very last to become part of the United States. Settlers from Sonora, Mexico brought their food traditions with them, including carne seca, which is beef strips, which have been seasoned or unseasoned. Sometimes it's rubbed with lime juice and salt and other seasonings. And then those strips are air dried in the hot sun and the dry air of the region. So later after the strips of meat have dried so that they're like beef jerky, the strips are pounded or shredded and then stewed and mixed with green chilies, onions, and tomatoes, and served in tacos, burritos, and enchiladas. And carne seca remains a regional specialty to this day. And there is a recipe for both how to make beef jerky and how to make carne seca from beef jerky in Taste of Tucson. This region is still connected to the past, to native cultures, to Mexico, to the Spanish, to early settlers from around the globe, which include Chinese immigrants who helped build the railroad. The cuisine and culture are constantly evolving, as they should. People's personal histories have merged with the region and have grown and evolved just as the area has. Taste of Tucson pays tribute to all the cultures this community was built on. Taste of Tucson is about inclusion, and it's also about diversity. You will see the merging of cultures over time and the way food has progressed in one of the oldest and continually inhabited cities in North America. The book offers an array of basic dishes that are staples of Sonoran-style Mexican cuisine, as well as dishes that are my own mix and match reinterpretations of classics. It also features recipes contributed from 16 of the region's most celebrated chefs, including several who've won and been nominated for James Beard Awards. You will gain a foundational knowledge of Sonoran cuisine, but you will also learn how these chefs and I have expanded upon those basics. And then I have a couple of short videos that are also kind of book trailers. They work as book trailers too. And since we've got a lot of time, I'm just gonna go ahead and play the first one for you, and hopefully it'll play okay within this little box here. And if not, we'll put links. Hi, my name is Jackie Alpers, and today I'm going to be showing you how to dry and mill chili so that you can make your own chili powder and spice blend. So I've got jalapenos and the Caribe chilies, both of which dry well. Really, there's not any kind of chili that you can't dry. So I'm just going to start by cutting up the chilies, and we'll put them in the dehydrator. Then all you have to do is turn this on and let them dry. You'll know they're done when they're crisp and crunchy. Now, we're going to grind them up into powder. It's important to wait for the dust to settle before you open this, because the chili dust will get into your eyes and your nose. Whoa. Once you have your chili powder, you can mix it with other ingredients and make your own spice blends. All of these recipes are from my book, Taste of Tucson, which is available wherever books are sold. Thanks. Okay, I have the second video. Here we go. Hi, my name is Jackie Alpers, and today I'm going to be making chili to bean salsa, which is a blended salsa that you can make in about 5 minutes with pantry staples. A cup of water, 3 cloves of garlic, pulse, 1/4 of a cup of white onion, 2 tablespoons of well-hacked cilantro, a tablespoon of chili piquin, which is a small, very hot chili that grows wild in Arizona and which you can purchase online. 2 tablespoons of Mexican oregano, which is different than European oregano. 2 teaspoons of Sonoran sea salt, 2 tablespoons good quality olive oil, 1/4 cup of white vinegar, 1 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes or tomato puree. This is my favorite brand. Pulse. Taste your salsa and adjust the seasoning if necessary. Great. Enjoy. All right, that's the end, which hopefully leaves a lot of time for Q&A if anyone has any questions.
We do have some questions in our Q&A, and like I said, guys, if you have anything, feel free to drop it in the Q&A section. This first one, I believe, is for Michelle. Are there any fruits you could use in place of strawberries?
Yes, any fruit you can use in place of strawberries. I mean, you can do anything with this. I made peach ones last week. You can make them with, I've even done them with berries, like blueberries, which is super easy because you can just like drop them in there. You don't have to do the fussy thing. I've done them with plums. The things you just need to think about are the specific fruit that you're using and the sugar. Again, kind of going back to that. So you need to think about like how juicy your fruit is and how sweet your fruit is. So say if you're using apples, like they're not going to be all crazy and juicy and you don't have to worry about it. But if you're trying to do plums, they're going to be super, plums are super juicy. They sort of like disintegrate and then kind of come back together again. But you're going to want to use like a lot of sugar because the plum skins are super, super sour. And if I'm doing a plum tart, this tart has like about 2 tablespoons of sugar for the whole thing, including the crust. And I would say for a plum tart, you might want to add like as much as 50% more, like 3 tablespoons of sugar. And then sometimes I'll even like, you can kind of cheat it too and taste it at the end. And if it's like too sour, if you take it when they first come out of the oven, you can just like sprinkle some sugar on top, or you can make like a little glaze and brush it on to give it a little extra sugaryness.
And then a second question about biscuits. This person is from Durham, North Carolina, and they've lived in Texas for decades, and they're still looking for a decent biscuit. What are your thoughts on biscuits, secret ingredients, best recipes, or anything?
Biscuits. Well, we do it crazy. There's like kind of a Hungarian one in there. It's got baking powder and yeast. So it's very light. Edna Lewis, I would guess. I would either say like if I was going, I don't know if Edna Lewis has a biscuit recipe. Bill Neal in his cookbooks. Actually, it's kind of funny. I'm pretty sure someone that I baked with a long time ago she helped with a lot of the baking recipes in his book, and she was one of my great teachers. And she had incredible biscuits, and she worked at Cook's Corner for a long time. So Bill Neal cookbooks, he wrote, it was like spoon breads, biscuits, something, some long name. He's like 2 kind of really important books on Southern cooking. I also, Bill Smith, who also worked at Cook's Corner more recently, he has a lot of books. I mean, I would say like I sort of go to like, if I'm trying to make Southern style biscuits, I'm going to pick a Southern cookbook. I'm going to pick it from someone who has been baking for a long time. And that's kind of like where I would go, or a very old cookbook. But for us, for our focaccia, we have baking powder and we have also yeast, and it's also laminated, which means like puff dough, like we put the turns in it. And I think that's how you really get the super flaky biscuits that people kind of talk about. So I'm sort of like, I have like 3 power, like the triple power lightness for us.
For Jackie, what was the research process like for this cookbook?
Oh, it was complicated because I actually checked in with the people at UNESCO and made sure I had all my history correct. with them, so they'd actually contributed some of that historical information, and I double checked it all with them to make sure I was correct. And then as far as working with developing the recipes, I had a lot of them that I've kind of developed over the years already in place, but I also worked with local chefs to help them prepare their recipes for the book. And a lot of times restaurant chefs aren't really well versed in creating written recipes for the general consumer or the general public. So I worked with them kind of a lot to make sure that their quantities and their language was written in a way that would work for the readers. So yeah, there's a lot of research that went into it.
And I mean, I'm based in Texas, but I also I love to ask this question of all, like anyone that cooks. How do you define Tex-Mex? Because it's very controversial in the South. So if you have any thoughts on it, just based off of like research and what you've done. And
Yeah.
same for Michelle, I'm from North Carolina as well. So.
Well, it's very funny because Tucson is kind of situated in between, the land of Tex-Mex and the land of Southern California cuisine. And Tex-Mex, to me, has a really, strangely, even though they're both considered Mexican cuisine and they're both kind of the Southern United States, Tex-Mex, I think, is highly influenced by, weirdly, that region has just changed it up a little bit, where Sonoran cuisine is more about a lot more fresh fruits and vegetables, I think, because it's so hot here. I think it's a little bit lighter, where in my mind, I think Tex-Mex is a really interesting but different merging of Mexican and American cultures. So I see more yellow or queso or melted cheese, even though there's queso here too. I think like queso and is like idea to me of what Tex-Mex is, and more ground beef with more cumin and different flavorings, even though there's ground beef here too. It's interesting, the kind of subtleties in regional Mexican cuisine that kind of go along what I think people are calling that taco trail, along the southern United States.
Ooh, Michelle, someone is asking what kind of.
I use many rolling pins. So I have a lot of rolling pins, and I think that you kind of need different ones for things. But at the same time, I have gone many years of my life, like I'm the person that's willing to use a wine bottle. I don't care. You just need something. But for a dough like this, I really like the one with the pins in it, like the old-timey one, where you've got like the two things on the sides and the thing rolls. I feel like it's a lot easier to get control. I always have like pastry cooks that start with me and they're like, oh, I'm not using that. I'm using a French rolling pin. They try to do a couple and then they like sneak over and grab the one with the pins, and it's like super easy for them. So it's just, I feel like it's easier to hold this thing rather than like, kind of rolling, like with a French rolling pin, you're gonna go this way, which is perfect for some things. But for a tart dough like this, I really like the one with the pins, like the old-timey one.
Well, for both of you, how do you decide which recipes to leave out and which ones to put in? Jackie, if you want to go first.
Okay, well, I worked really closely with my editors at West Margin Press, which is a wonderful boutique and publishing house out of Berkeley, California. And we had a lot of discussion about what to leave out and leave in. And it really comes down to like what's best for the reader, what's a true representation of the cuisine, and what's really going to help people. And especially because I worked with some chefs, I wanted to make sure that the recipes that they submitted fit in with the book, so that there wasn't too many chicken recipes or too many, desserts or whatever, that there's a nice balance.
Too many desserts, there's no such thing. So for me, I don't know if this specifically answers this question, but generally this is sort of like an evolution. Like it originally started more as like a proper restaurant book where it had like savory things and desserts, but I was actually going to put the desserts at the beginning and the savory things at the end. And then ultimately it just became more just an entirely baking book, because it seemed like that was where the strength was. So I didn't necessarily pick the recipes that I thought would be the easiest for the home cook. That's kind of not really what this book is about, but it's about, the recipes in this book are very like, most of them are made by hand. So you don't need like a lot of ridiculous fancy equipment to make it work. Like I'm saying, like you can have a super fancy rolling pin or you can have a wine bottle. It's fine. It's like, you can have a fancy like Cuisinart, or you can like just chop it a whole bunch with a knife. You know, we don't like do laminated doughs on a giant sheeter. I mix that dough the way that I showed you. It's not some like schlocky way. We do it by hand still, and then like put it the bowls like this big that we do for the cafe. Like the strudel dough, it's mixed by hand. So I thought I chose the recipes that I thought represented like the work that was the best here and all the things that I thought people would really, really like to do at home. I didn't pick anything that like had super fussy, like specific regional ingredients that no one would be able to ever find. And that was kind of what I used to cut out. But yeah, I picked things that would be really good and like really challenging and fun and would make you feel, good about yourself when you made something, even if maybe it did take your whole day. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, Jackie.
I guess I'll add that, because what Michelle said kind of made me think about what I said, and it's true. I now that I think about it, I really did try and give a really basic introduction to some what I think are important recipes, like good green tomatillo salsa or how to make corn tortillas. But I think one of the great things about Sonoran cuisine is that the ingredients all kind of build upon each other. So once you know how to like make corn tortillas or tomatillo salsa, or really, really good like charro beans, how you can mix and match all those ingredients and be creative and start to make your own creations based on those kind of building blocks.
Right. Well, someone is asking, do you think there's a recipe in your book that you would consider to be uniquely Arizonian or Tucson?
Oh yeah. Well, like I said in the PowerPoint presentation, I have a recipe in there for carne seca. And that's one of the recipes that kind of builds on another recipe, where first I show you how to make beef jerky, where you can season it different ways, or you could just leave it plain and you can make it in the oven, which it's not like you don't have to be in Arizona to make it, but if you were, you probably could make it in the sun. Here we make it in the sun. South Dakota, you're probably going to need to make it in the oven. Then after it's dried, you can eat it as it is, or you can shred it. And then you can pan fry it with green chilies, onions, and tomatoes, and then it becomes carne seca. They sometimes call it machaca when it's not actually made in the sun, because carne seca means sun, but same basic idea. And then from there, you can use that carne seca and make a tostada or enchiladas, or put it in your breakfast burrito, or just a variety of different ways to kind of mix it up. But I think carne seca is really like it's only really known here in Tucson, so it's kind of special that way.
Well, this next question is for both of you. When you're cooking meals for yourself, do you use recipes and cookbooks, or do you like to make it up as you go along? If you use cookbooks, which ones do you like? And Michelle, I'll let you go first.
Oh, I'm so bad. I just like to kind of make it up as I go, but I do kind of look at cookbooks if I'm doing something where it's like I can't just, wing it. Like if I'm trying to make pasta or something, I'll like bust out like the Chez Panisse Cafe book and like, pick something that has like a very basic recipe that I know is going to work, and I'll use that. If I'm going to try to do like a roast chicken, I have like the Time Life series, and I'll go look up how to do roast chicken in the Time Life series. Like, have these 70s cookbooks that I'll look up things. But mostly I do just sort of like to wing it. Like, either I'll go to the farmer's market, or usually I'm at work and my husband goes to the farmer's market and he brings home sometimes crazy stuff. And then I'll just kind of look at it and try and figure out what to do with it. So yeah, I'm a little bit of a, I think because I'm so, like, pastry people are so kind of, I'm not going to say rigid, but we're regimented for sure. And we follow things. Like, I work all day. When I come home, I just kind of like go like crazy and just like throw stuff in this and that and like pull stuff out of the cupboard. And that's kind of how I like to cook at home.
Well, I have a ton of cookbooks and I cook from cookbooks all the time. And I like to invent things too. It just kind of, I usually, if I have something in mind, I'll usually start by researching all my cookbooks and seeing what exists, and then seeing how I want to switch it up for me. But, or sometimes I just have an idea that I just off the cuff that I make up completely. But right now I'm really on this like Thai kick. So I'm making all these recipes from like the Pok Pok cookbook and the Night Market cookbook. And I have all these, I've been collecting Thai cookbooks for forever. And that tends to influence me, like when I make up recipes, even for the book. I have like a Thai Mex slaw, Thai Mexican kind of Sonoran mashup coleslaw in Taste of Tucson, and that's kind of what makes Sonoran cuisine kind of cool, is that it does have influences from all different places, and that's changing even now, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna put Thai chilies and fish sauce and everything right now because that's where I'm at right now with what I'm thinking, but it doesn't necessarily make it any less Sonoran. It's just, you know, my Sonoran.
Well, we have two questions that it kind of work together, and it's for both of you. How do you go about writing a recipe in such a way that people who aren't cooking experts can follow the recipe and not totally mess up the food? Whoever wants.
Okay, so I mean, my whole process is like, I have an idea basically, and then I have these pieces of parchment paper, and I like run around and try and make it taste the way I want, and like scribble things and write it down so that like if it comes out right, like I can actually remember what I did. So and then I mean, basically I don't do anything specifically for home cooks that I wouldn't do for someone else, because I think cooking is cooking. I mean, you make it like kind of a normal size, but you just have to make sure you include everything, because, you know, it's not like your pastry cook can come up to you and ask you a question like that they don't understand. That's part of the recipe. So I just make sure I include everything. And part of that process is actually having a person who is not a professional pastry chef test out the recipes. And then that person is key. That was Jessica Badalana. She was super key in making sure that the recipes all work at home. She made them all at home in her little tiny apartment in San Francisco. And she's the one who was calling me like, what is this? What does this mean? How am I supposed to do this in my house? And I would be like, so then we would kind of do a workaround. So I think having that person to go through, that other person that isn't you, that's like, you just hand it off to them and be like, make this, and then they get to figure out like what's missing. Because, you know, you have all this stuff in your head that you just think it's like automatic, and you think everyone thinks that way, but no one thinks like you. No one thinks like anyone else. And so you have to have a whole other person to think about it a different way for you.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time working to make recipes that are accessible to the home chef. That's really my goal. I would hope that, you know, restaurant chefs could use them if they want to, but I'm really thinking about kind of I try and make recipes that are really doable by just about anyone. And I've been developing recipes for a long time now, and I think for me it's just a matter of time. I'll make a recipe, I'll write it down, and then I'll make it like 10 times. And as I make that recipe over and over again, I'll review that recipe, what I've written, and think about how I can make it easier and more understandable for everyone, because I really want my recipes to be clear, so that no matter who you are, if you make that recipe, if you follow the directions as they're written, you'll understand what the instructions are, and the recipe will come out the way that it was intended, that I intended it to come out, or that whoever the chef is intended it to taste.
We have two more questions before we close out. This next one is for Michelle. What type of pastries are in your book? Are they traditional European, or have you updated them?
They are, let's just say they are kind of traditional and mostly traditional. They're inspired for sure by the traditional pastries of Central and Eastern Europe. And they're definitely kind of like viewed through a Northern California / Michelle Polzin lens. But some of the things that I thought that I just like fully made up out of the sky, I have had lots of like people come from Central and Eastern Europe and eat in the cafe and be like, my grandmother made this cake. And I was like, whoa. So there's like there's like the mindset, I think, of Central and Eastern Europe. I'm not gonna claim to make them like absolutely authentic, but I think that they are like, they do like represent the region, and that they are like really wonderful. And I think people will recognize things from like their grandmother's cooking if their like grandmas have come from Central Europe, and blah blah blah. Did I get it?
I think you did. And then for both of you, last question, Heather would love to know what each of you loves to cook the most. What is your favorite recipe of all time during this process?
That's a hard one, because I like to make all kinds of stuff. But right now I'm kind of on a salad kick, you know, like I've been making this Caesar salad since I was like 11, from The Joy of Cooking, from the like 1974 version of The Joy of Cooking that I've been making since I was, like I said, like 11. And I've kind of modified it over the years, and I was actually considered putting in like a Sonoran Caesar, you know, because actually Caesar salad was invented in Mexico, but I ended up not. But when you ask me what the first thing I make is, like, I love a salad, and I love to like make a nice mixed salad where it's like you can mix salsa in with like vinegar and oil and make a great salad dressing, and mix different ingredients from the book, like maybe some whole beans and maybe some cheese, tomatoes, or pico salsa, or whatever meat you're into. Carne asada is really great in a salad, with a warm carne asada and then a cool lettuce and some nice salsa dressing. So salad's where it's at for me right now.
Okay, do you mean specifically from the book or just in general?
In general, I think. I mean, if there's something you want it is from the book, that's great. But
we've been eating like a lot of kind of like a little bit like hippie food. A lot of broccoli and brown rice and tofu. My husband's been doing a lot of the cooking, and that's like one of his specialties. So we've been eating a lot of that. I've been making a lot of the savory strudel that is actually, it's in the book. I've been making it for having like socially distanced dinners in my backyard and eating lots of borscht. It's so good for you. Lots of borscht, lots of this like nettle, like with wild nettles and cheese. It's super delicious. My husband's vegetarian. It makes him so happy when I make this thing for him. So that's, I think, mostly like what we've been eating at home lately. Lots of wholesome hippie food, and then also lots of not wholesome cheese.
Well, I definitely agree with Kelsey. I'm starving now. But thank you guys so much for for both of your beautiful presentations. I will hand it off to Heather.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you so much, Michelle and Jackie. What a wonderful event, and all of our attendees, such great questions. Thank you. And I am hungry also. I have the Joy of Cooking that is probably 30 years old also, and it is the go-to for so many basic recipes. It's amazing. And now I want both of these cookbooks. So thank you both so much. Thank you all for being here. Tomorrow, remember, we're doing nonfiction with coffee with nonfiction authors at 10 a.m. Mountain. Everyone is invited, so please join us then. Thank you both very much, Jackie and Michelle, and also Christina. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.